And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a Queen game called Edo. Now this is a game set in Japan where you're going to be using tiles that you can rotate in order to select actions, and then placing your workers in front of those tiles to depict how many times you want to take that action. But in order to do that, you're going to have to manage the people that you have on your tiles as well as on the board in order to take some of the more difficult actions like trading or building. But real quick, why don't we just take a look at what you get inside of this box and how the game plays, and then we'll come back here and get my opinion on it all at the end. So here you can see Edo laid out, and I've got it set up for a 3-player game, if only because the setups for 2 and 4 players are slightly variable. They require you to cover up some of the areas on the board, and I really don't want to go over that in the setup. So basically, you're going to look at a 3-player game and note that there are minor adjustments for 2 or 4, and that 4-player game is actually played on the other side of this board, which just has a slightly different layout and some more cities. Now, the idea of this game is that it's going to be an action selection and worker utilization game, and that you're going to have basically 12 different actions. You have 3 different tiles here that are going to have different actions on them. But you can really only take one of these actions from each of these tiles, so if there's 2 actions on the same tile you want to take, you cannot do so. So we'll look at these, and basically how you're going to do this is at the beginning of each round you're going to rotate this tile the way you want it, and then you're going to place them in this sheet here, or this little player aid, and it's going to hold them up. And basically the action you've got at the bottom of the card is going to be the one you want to take for that round, and you're going to take them sequentially. Starting with the start player, everyone will take action 1, then everyone will take action 2, and everyone will take action 3. Now, you also have workers here, and these workers are going to let you take the actions multiple times. If we look at this card here, you can look at this bottom action here, which is placing guys out on the board as samurai or moving samurai around. And you can allot 1, 2, or 3 guys to this action, but not 4. Or if we look at this one here, you can spend $5 to buy one of the new action cards out here, which are just upgraded versions of the action cards you have, but you can only do it once, so you can spend $5 and allocate 1 guy to this to buy 1 new card. Others of these are going to require you to have guys placed out here and have samurai out on the board, which are going to be guys that move around the board to various cities or various different resource spots in order to gather resources or build buildings or trade. So you'll see here, this one shows a guy here, a little white guy, which is one of your officials, and then it shows a gray guy behind him, which is a samurai, meaning that for every samurai that you want to activate on the board, you must allocate one of your officials to the action out here. Now, the idea of this game is to score victory points, and you're going to score victory points by having your samurai collect resources, and then using those resources to trade for victory points, and depending on how you're trading each round, for example, this round it would be 2 rice for 1 victory point, 1 time maximum. Or you're going to be trying to build buildings with those resources in the various cities of Edo and the various surrounding cities here. You'll see there's 1, 2, 3 cities on the board, and right now green controls this one, red this one over here, blue this one here, but Edo has no influence, and that's because you're not allowed to start the game there. So during setup, players chose where they wanted to be. You can't choose Edo. However, in order to win the game, at the end of the game, you must have at least 1 building in Edo. So if you've ignored building in Edo for the whole game, you cannot win. But as I said, players are going to choose actions, and the actions are many and varied, but some of them are going to let you get resources, some of them are going to let you make samurai, and samurai are going to be important at the beginning of the game. So let's go over these tiles real quick. This one here at the bottom, you can see, lets you get rice. For each guy you assign to it, you get 1 rice. If we look at it this way, for each guy you assign to it, you get $5. This one here is going to let you collect wood from the board. And you'll see out here there are spots that are colored kind of brownish. If you get one of your samurai on the board on one of these spots, and then you take this action, dependent on how many people are there, you're going to collect some wood. So for example, this one here says, if there's 1 person there, you collect 3 wood. If there's 2, it's 2, and if there's 3, it's 1. If there's 4 or more, nobody collects anything. So, the fewer guys that are on each of those resource collection spots, the better. And you'll see if you have multiple of these spots out here and you have multiple samurai out on them, you can use this card twice in order to collect from both. In addition, we'll see that we have another spot out here, or another action on this one here, which is building buildings. You can either build houses, trading posts, or fortresses. And these are 3 different types of buildings, all with their own variable costs, which are printed on a player sheet here. You'll see that houses cost you 1 stone, 2 wood, and 5 money. And in addition, you have to, be around that city to build it. So if you're going to build into a city, you're going to essentially put one of your houses out in the next open available spot. When you do this, you're going to get victory points for whatever you build, and you're going to trade in the resources, and it's going to affect the influence in that city. So each one of these houses is worth 1 influence. Each one of your trading posts is worth 2, and a fortress is actually worth none. So they're not influences, but they're going to provide you with victory points when you do it. So if you build out here, right now red has control of this area. But if green were to build, then red and green, well, red would still be first because they built first, green would be second. If green then built a second one, they'd have 2 points of influence, and they'd now be first. And when green gets majority at the end of the round, there's going to be scoring or a payout for these cities, and whoever's in first place is going to get $6 when there's 2 people there, and the second place will get 2. If there had been only 1 person there like there is now, red would collect $8 in this scenario. So having influence over these various cities is going to be a way to get money, and having money is going to be one of the ways to get victory points at the end of the game. So you can use 2 of your officials, you'll see here it's 2 officials per 1 samurai on the board, in order to build a building. Now, there's a cheaper version of that on a different card. It is 1 samurai per official in order to build a building. The cost for the buildings is still the same, but you only need to place 1 of your guys on the action for each samurai out on the board to build that building, and the samurai will move into the city. So, you can also collect stone, much like collecting wood. You may pay rice in order to get new officials. Now, you'll see you start the game with 5 of your own colored officials. They're all right here. They're a little bit off the screen, but that's okay. You may buy new officials for rice, which is one of the resources you can collect in the game. And for each one of these you buy, you'll put it back there, and you can use it to activate more actions. So instead of being able to activate 5 different actions, even though you're only playing 3 actions, you can use these guys to activate more. But they can never become samurai, so you can only use your own colored guys to become samurai. And then you can collect rice, which is on the same card as collecting stone. So if you want to collect both, well, you're out of luck. The final card here is going to have a few more actions on it. So we have trading. For each samurai that you allocate with an official, you may trade. And trading is going to be one way to get victory points. If you're in the same spot as the trading post, which you may move around for $1 as far as you want to move it between cities. So if I wanted to move it from here, well, let's say I move it there, it's 1. If I wanted to move it over here, 1, 2 is 3 more. So $1, $2, $3 to move it there, and then I can make whatever trades I wanted to make. Now those trades come in the form of either trading for resources or trading for money. Victory points. So I can spend $3 up to 3 times to buy up to 3 wood. Or, alternatively, if I don't want to do that, I may trade in 2 rice for 1 victory point 1 time. So you can only do one or the other, but that's only if you don't have your trading post built in the same city. So if I've built my trading post into a city, now that if I'm there with one of my samurai, the samurai standing in the city, and I move the trading post in, 1, 2, 3, I may take both of those trade options, trading for both resources and for victory points. So you'll see trying to move this trading post around the board by paying, or trying to move your samurai to where the trading post is in order to be able to trade, is going to be one way to buy points or to get more resources. So there's all types of movement around this board. Again, I showed you being able to move guys onto the board, making new samurai, so placing one of the guys you placed on the action out onto the board as a samurai on one of these post areas here, which is where samurai come into the board, and then you have to pay to move them anytime you want to use them. Or the various other actions I've already showed you. They kind of duplicate some, but it's going to be a lot of resource production, moving stuff around the board and buying new stuff for yourself. So as I said, whenever you want to take actions, you're simply going to place the card down like this, and you're going to choose the way you want it to be. So maybe the first action I want to take is to just kind of get some rice, straight up, not collect it from the board, but get rice. And since I have no samurai out on the board, it's probably a good idea for me to make some samurai. And then maybe my third action will be, once I've got my samurai out on the board, I want to buy some more guys. So I need to buy a couple more of these guys to place out so I can take more actions. And then I'm going to use my 5 guys that I have in order to decide how many times I want to do each of these actions. So maybe I want to collect a couple of rice. I say I'm going to get rice twice, and I put 2 guys in front of the sheet there. 1, 2. I know it's a little hard to see, but I put 2 out there. And then I decide that I want to make 2 samurai, so 1, 2, and then I will pay to get a new guy 1 time. So that's my setup, and once we've done this, we'll start going around in turn order, revealing the first one. So I've got 2 guys there. I would take 2 rice from the supply and put them into my own personal supply with my already existing 3 rice and my 2 stone. And so now that I've got those, these guys are essentially done for the round. Each other player would take whatever their first action was, and then we'd come back to me, and I'd take my second action, which is either to put samurai out onto the board for each of the guys I've placed, or move up to 2 of my already existing samurai for free. Usually when you want to move them, they're $1 per movement. So I'll decide to make 2 samurai, and maybe I place them out here and there, just arbitrarily. And that would be my second action. And then my third action is that I can pay rice 1 time to get a new guy. So I'm going to pay 1 of my rice back to the supply, and take 1 of these neutral colored guys and add him to my own supply area, so that I can use him in the next turn to activate a new action. After you've done all of this and everybody's gone around and taken their 3 actions, they'll have all of their cards back, and all of the officials that they haven't placed out onto the board will be in front of them. And then you're going to move on to what is called the collecting wages and collecting income phase of the game. And basically, for each samurai a player has out on the board, they must decide whether or not they want to keep that samurai out there in order to potentially be used on the next turn to gather resources, which will be done at these resource gathering spots if they go to the wood ones here or the stone ones here, or there are various other ones like the rice ones here are in gold. They can move to these, and they'll be able to gather those using the action on their card. Or you can move them to cities in order to be able to trade or build buildings. Or, alternatively, they can pull them off of the board and, keep them back into their supply. But for each one they want to keep, they must play 1 rice from their supply back to the general supply to keep that samurai out there. After that, you're going to check and see who has the majority in each of the cities, like I talked about previously. And it's 1 point per house, 2 points per trading post, and fortresses are actually no points at all. But you can build them 1 for every 2 houses, and they're going to give you victory points for doing so. So when you put those out there, they're worth 3 victory points. And they're essentially just a way to build up victory points without influencing control in a city at all. So you're going to give out the money for each of these appropriately, and then you're going to move on to the next phase of the game. The next phase being essentially either ending the game or preparing for the next round. So the next round would now see that we have a new trade out here. It's either going to be $3 up to 3 times for 3 stone, or $7 and 1 rice for 1 victory point. And victory points are not really a readily available commodity in this game. In addition, everybody's essentially going to start over. They're going to have all 3 of their tiles again, and they're going to prepare to place them all out on the board, just like I showed you the first time. Well, there you have it. That is Edo from Queen Games, a pretty cool little game with the rotating tiles that allow you to select actions. Each tile with 4 actions, and often, you want to take more than 1 from that tile, but can't, which really places an emphasis on buying new tiles to add to your repertoire of tiles so that you can take multiple actions that are on the same tile at the same time by using new tiles. That, plus the management of your workers that you have to place in front of your tiles, but also out on the board to gather resources, and gathering those resources to keep your guys out on the board so that you can perform actions, really makes you focus on a lot of different things at the same time. So with that said, I think that this is a pretty complex game, but one that plays and is easy to learn. So easy to play, easy to learn, but with a level of complexity that's going to keep you interested. If this sounds good to you, check it out. That's Edo from Queen Games.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.